So 9 years ago, this happened. I was 16 and seen something unexplainable after a night of using a Ouija board, aka Pandora's box. We found a classic Parker Brothers Ouija board one day in our closet and wanted to know what the big hype about using Ouija boards was. I was curious on why people thought it worked and how it worked. I was very open-minded, but I found it hard to believe a game board can do something as incredible as talk to the dead. Now I really understand the saying, curiosity killed the cat more than ever. We would play with it outside during nighttime with our friends. We began playing with it very often, and we actually had a lot of fun calling on dead celebrities like Mac Dre and making jokes about the shortage of chairs in heaven. These supposed ghosts had a lot of personality, and we weren't really sure that any of this was real, but it was fun and we kept at it. We even had up to 8 people doing it all at once on our lawn one night, with even more watching. It seemed fine until people left and right started telling us the creepy stuff that happened to them since they started using the thing. I wasn't sure though, because nothing had happened to me yet. Well, I eventually did have something happen to me. Multiple times, but this takes the cake. One morning, after playing with the board the night before, I was awoken. I felt like someone was shaking me slightly. I remember opening my eyes and seeing some blurry yellow face next to my legs staring at me almost eye level, with a featureless stare except its 2 dark circles for eyes and pursed mouth. It had a blank look. It was blurry looking and looked flat like a picture. It looked like an unfocused camera picture. It didn't budge, just stared. Its face looked featureless and fuzzy, but it had a widened pursed mouth. It was monkey-like in a way. Its head was round with a widened mouth. Its eyes were dark and empty, but not quite black. Its mouth was a flat dark line. Its body was a strange embodiment of circular yellow that the face seemed to protrude out of it. I didn't believe what I was seeing because the fuzziness and how flat it looked. I thought I still must have been dreaming or something, but the thing sat there for multiple seconds while I stood there, confused. To see if I was sleeping, I slapped myself and closed my eyes. When I opened them, I half expected to be gone, but it was still there, unmoving, and staring at me in the same spot. I reached out and tried to grab it, but the thing moved, leaving a yellow blur that shot underneath me and my bed. Without thinking, I yelped a little and flung myself over the edge of the bed to look underneath. Nothing there. It was quiet. I leaned backed up puzzled. All of a sudden, the silence was broken by an awful scratching noise. The noise surrounded me, moving violently across the walls. It traced the corners of my room. It shot across my floor and my roof. It ran behind my ears. I leapt out of my bed and through my doorway in one step. As I ran down the hall, I felt like something was chasing me. The scratching seemed to taunt me as it got louder to my ears while I ran. I got to my brother's room, turned to slam the door behind me just in time to see a yellow blur in the hallway. As the door closed, the scratching noise stopped. I didn't sleep in my room again for months, and needless to say, I've learned our lesson not to mess with the board, and we got rid of it. Our ghost problems have since got a lot better. I'm using this post to chronicle the events of this evening, as they have been truly fascinating. Some quick backstory. The small section of the city that me and my friends live in generally is known to be haunted. And even if you are not a believer in the supernatural, it's at least a bit eerie. I'm not going to dox myself by stating the location, but let's just say that creepy sightings, murders, deaths due to unexplained circumstances are our bread and butter. For most people, this means you move away as soon as you can. For folks like me and my friends, who absolutely love all things spine-chilling, it generally makes for a good time. Our Halloween parties are awesome. Most of our drinking nights have some sort of spooky game interlaced into them. And if you literally have nothing to do on a Friday night with your friends, you can always go on a tour of some of our haunted locales, graveyards, abandoned buildings, creepy forests, you name it. So with the background established, let's cut back to tonight. Me and my closest 3 pals decided to try our hand at using a Ouija board. We were going to be normal and try the Ouija board in one of our family attics. Nah, too basic. We instead decided to track up together to what, I shit you not, is an abandoned treehouse left in an elevated section of our city surrounded by forests. What can go wrong, right? We climbed up to the treehouse, sat down a spooky-themed rug, lit some candles, and brought out the Ouija board. Despite my extensive resume of dealing with all things creepy, I've never actually tried a Ouija board before, so I was really excited to see what would happen. We went into this excited to break every rule in the book. We weren't going to do a seance. We were going to do whatever and ask whatever we wanted, and we didn't need to worry about being respectful to the spirit, etc. We'd figure if something interesting were to happen, it'd be more likely if we went in as carefree as possible. We sat in a round circle around the Ouija board and got started, asking simple questions like, is there a spirit with us? With all of our hands placed on the planchette. No real response. We fluttered the planchette in a few different directions, but we can tell we were kind of forcing it. We asked the other few questions, what's your name? When did you die? Etc., but nothing really came out of it. After trying for at least a half an hour and not really getting anything in the form of a response, we decided that we probably didn't have any spooky luck tonight and opted instead to share scary stories in a treehouse. We left the Ouija board just out in case we'd had any luck that night. Amidst the break in our storytelling where everyone was grabbing drinks and snacks from their bags, I decided to give the Ouija board another quick go. I placed my hand on a planchette alone and whispered the following question. Will you please grace us with your presence tonight? Surprisingly, the planchette started moving. It's hard to explain, but you kind of know when something is moving on its own versus you sort of suddenly and subconsciously moving it with your hand to force an answer. This felt real. A tingle went up my spine. It was cool as hell. My hand was moved to the following letters. Y-E-S. Yes. Awesome. I looked over to the group and told them that the Ouija board was working again. Excitingly, we all huddled around and placed our hands on a planchette, and I followed up with another question. Where are you from? We sat there excitedly waiting for something. Instead, nothing. The planchette was still. The lack of any sort of external force with us was very, very obvious. Disappointing, but I had an idea I wanted to follow up with. I turned to my friend Kevin and asked him, do you want to try doing it solo? It worked for me. Kevin was confused, but he decided to give it a try. We all backed up to give him some space with the Ouija board. He placed his hand on the planchette and repeated my question. Where are you from? His expression changed to shock as his hand started moving with the planchette. He turned to us all, mouthing the words, I'm not doing this, to which I excitedly mouthed back, I know. I pulled out a notepad and recorded the answer as the planchette went from letter to letter. I recorded the following. Not important. Love it. A spirit with some sass. I asked Kev to back up for a second as I approached the Ouija board, prepped for the final solo question I asked. Why are you only responding when it's one of us using the board? Yet again, the planchette moved effortlessly with my hand. It was faster this time. So I said the letters out loud and had another one of my friends, Eleanor, transcribe onto my notepad. The answer was, one at a time. Fair enough. I thank the spirit, my hands still on a planchette. I appreciate your answers, my friend. To my surprise, and a strange synergy between me and the spirit, I felt compelled to move the planchette again. It was the fastest it had ever been this time, as it covered the following letters: Tellevry, Onelsestoleabe. Tell everyone else to leave. Huh? My friends looked at me skeptically as I said the letters at a time. Are you sure you didn't just force that on purpose? Asked Eleonora. I assured her I definitely didn't. That was definitely from the spirit. At this point, this had been the most clearly supernatural phenomenon I've ever experienced in my life, and I was excited to keep it going. My friends, usually unflinching and made of ice, were a little bit more thrown. Eleanor and Martin looked ever so slightly spooked, but Kev was willing to go with it. Might as well see where it goes, Kevin said, as he started climbing down from the treehouse. With a slight bit of hesitation, Eleanor and Martin followed suit. Sweet. An actual creepy night. I embraced the quiet amidst the lighting of the candles and the power of the Ouija board. I geared up for my next question. I wasn't about to hold back. Spirit, how will I die? I took in a deep breath, waiting for some movement. Slowly. DEPENDS. Depends. Interesting answer. If not a bit underwhelming. I geared up for my follow-up. Oh, come on, Spirit. What about something a bit more specific? My hand moved with the planchette to the following letters. I tried hard to focus and connect the letters since I didn't have anyone to transcribe with me. WHATISYOURNAME. What is your name? Weird. Completely dodged my question and asked my name. Okay, all-knowing spirit. I assumed you already know that. I decided to try tricking it. My name is Belle. Moving from the planchette on the Ouija board, it took me to the letters DONOTLIE. Do not lie. Well played, spirit. I gave the spirit my actual name, Jennifer, and continued to see the follow-up response. WHATISYOURFAVORITEFOOD. What is your favorite food? Honoring the spirit's rules, I opted to tell the truth instead of following up with another lie. Your girl does love donair, and this spirit deserves to know that. The Ouija board's response, CORRECT, correct. Before I could take in the affirmation from the spirit, it followed up with yet another question. WHATISYOURBIGGESTFARDONOTLIE. What is your biggest fear? Do not lie. This question took me aback a bit. I wasn't really afraid of anything, or so I thought. So I struggled with it. It took me a few moments. I really thought of it. I kind of cringed at the answer, but it was my truth. Something horrible happening to my little brother. No movement from the Ouija board. Seconds turned into minutes as I kept my hand awkwardly placed on the planchette. Then, finally, THANKYOUSENDELEONORA. Thank you, Sin Eleonora. Well, I obliged. I thanked the spirit for his time and decided to climb down from the treehouse where my friends were waiting. I passed on the spirit's message and told Eleanor that it was her turn. Martin, Kev, and I spent what must have been 15 minutes standing outside the treehouse while Eleanor was up there. We pulled drinks out of our bags and we were discussing my experience with the Ouija board so far. Both were incredibly surprised when I told them that the spirit was asking me questions. What kind of questions? Generic stuff, like my name, favorite food, etc. I answered. Weird. Both Kev and Martin seemed a bit thrown off by it, but I was excited. We looked up at the treehouse as we heard the sounds of someone climbing down. Eleanor had finished a session. She looked traumatized. How was it? I asked her. Weird. All it did was ask me questions. Questions like, Kev asked her, my name, favorite hobby, my biggest fear. That one took me a while to answer. Kev turned to me. That is a little bit eerie, he said. I agreed. Didn't look like Eleanor was loving it either. But still, a spirit asking us questions? This has to be one of the most coolest, if not the coolest paranormal experiences I've ever experienced in my life. Eleanor turned to Martin. It said that you were up next. Martin's session was longer than the others. We stood outside, drinking, talking about the happenings so far, and pulling out the occasional snack. This was a little bit traumatizing, said Eleanor. Kevin pointed up to her and then to the treehouse. Agreed. This is kind of messed up, he said. Yeah, but that's the point, I responded. We seek out spooky happenings all the time and we never get lucky. This is actually a legit supernatural experience. I feel like we have to take advantage of this. Even if it's asking us personal stuff, what does it want this information for? Followed up Eleanor. I shrugged. While the biggest fear question was pretty weird, I didn't feel too worried that a spirit knew my favorite food or what my name was. Our conversation was interrupted by the sound of someone climbing down from the treehouse. Martin had finished up his session. It felt like it's been 30 minutes, which topped the rest of our sessions. We bombarded Martin with questions as he reached the ground. He looked more shell-shocked than Eleanor did. That was pretty messed up, he started. What did it ask you? I asked enthusiastically. My biggest fear, Martin responded. It's weird, but it felt like it didn't like my answer to that one. It almost seemed like he was annoyed. Huh? So was it just silent for a while after that? I asked. No. It asked me way more things after that. What's the happiest moment of my life was? Who was I jealous of? What's my biggest dream? All this stuff. It was a lot of questions. Then finally, it just wrapped up with thank you, and that was that. Martin then turned to Kevin. You're up next. Kevin then turned to us all. Here goes nothing, he sighed and climbed up to the treehouse. We watched him make his way up to the top. For the first time in the evening, I had a knot in my stomach. Only 5 minutes has passed since Kevin went up, but he was already climbing down. He was shaking his head as he made his way down to the ladder and to our group. Screw that, said Kevin. What happened? We asked him. He just shook his head. This shit is dangerous. We need to get the hell out of here. ASAP. I've never seen Kevin like this. He was uncharacteristically shook. You have to tell us more. What did it ask you? What did it say? But Kevin ignored all of our questions. He started packing up his bag. You guys can play with fire if you want, but I'm out of here. I suggest you guys can come too, he said. I watched as Martin and Eleanor started packing up as well. I had bad feelings throughout this whole thing. I think we should leave, said Martin. Guys, what the hell? Just 'cause it's unsettling doesn't mean we have to pack up. We can just hang out up there and do something else, I said back. This doesn't feel right, said Eleonora. I watched them as they all took a few steps away from the treehouse and towards the forest. You coming? Said Kevin. I stood my ground. Kevin just shook his head and started heading out his way. Suit yourself. I had no idea what could have possibly happened up there that would have shook him this much. He just already started walking as Martin and Eleanor pled with me to come with them. I said no. Begrudgingly, they all left. You're probably wondering, wasn't I scared? Especially now that I was alone? The answer was yes, but something in my soul told me that I was up next. I spent my whole life waiting for something that was truly supernatural to happen, and now it was in front of me. With my fingers jittering, I climbed up to the treehouse as my friends departed. It took me a moment to pull together the bravery to put my hand on the planchette. The candles were still lit. The setting was just right. Finally, I spoke to the spirit again. Why are you asking us all of these questions? Nothing for a few minutes. Then my hand moved with the planchette slowly than usual. The answer, TOCONFIRMMYSUSPICIONS. Confirm your suspicions? Of what? Moving from the planchette on the Ouija board. ONEOUSYWHOWYOUSAYOUARE. One of you is not who you say you are. What are you talking about? I heard a blood-curdling screech coming from the outside in the forest from the treehouse, like nothing I ever heard before. What the hell? The planchette was moving on its own now. I watched it go from letter to letter. THATISNOTKEBIN HEISCOMINGBACKFORYOURUN. That is not Kevin. He is coming back for you. Run. And so I did. The small section of the city where I live is generally known to be haunted. I think I know why. It's time for me to leave. Good evening, everyone. This is Yuri K, and this is the end of the video. Please leave a comment and let us know your opinions on the matter. If you happen to like this content, please check out our other videos. Make sure you like and share amongst your friends and family to help our community grow. You happen to be new to this channel? Please make sure you subscribe. It's free and you can always change it in the future. You have some terrifying story suggestions? If so, make sure that you send it to my email, fearofthedarkstories@gmail.com, and I'll feature it in a future segment. But you guys stay safe out there, and remember to always be afraid of the dark.